Hello everyone and welcome to video number 4 in this History of Graphic Design video series. My name is Lewis and today we're going to be continuing on from what we learned last time with the Chinese movable type in their manuscripts. And today we're going to be going on to Johannes Gutenberg and what he did after he had discovered the Chinese movable type. So to go back, what movable type was an invention made by the Chinese that allowed them to make books and documents incredibly fast. So what it did was that because they were able to make books and documents so fast, their culture and information spread extremely rapidly. And when European traders and merchants came to China and found that they had been able to make these books and documents extremely quickly, they brought this information back. Now that being said, it wasn't really known how they did it, or it was very hard to reproduce, until a goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg found the Chinese methods for doing this, and he made his own version to suit the needs of Europe. And then this would revolutionize how we create books and documents today. So during the last discussion, we talked about manuscripts being the defining aspect of the medieval times, the Book of Kells and such like that, being iconic of Europe, and then the Chinese manuscripts being very iconic. However, the work of Johannes Gutenberg sort of signals the end of the medieval manuscripts. Now, that's not to say that they don't show up, but they start becoming less prominent. So Gutenberg developed this method of producing type and work. He essentially developed his own, not exactly a printing press, but he developed a medium where you could arrange type and such. So what he had done was he had made these small metal blocks with the type characters sort of engraved into them, sort of jutting out and extruded. And what he did was that he kept them all laid out into a sentence. So let's say we had to make a sentence that said, "The quick fox jumped over the sleeping dog." He would take these letters and then arrange them so that way they spelled out the entire sentence with their own elements in there to be the spaces. So there would be a blank square in the slot, and then what they would do is they'd be covered in ink and then pressed down to create the whole sentence. And what was important about this was that this meant that he could make books and documents incredibly fast. Now, this is very similar to how the Chinese did theirs, but he took it a step further. He developed a machine that could hold the type into specific iterations and formations, and he also set up the first sort of standardized margins from which he could place down the type. And what this meant was that the books could be created incredibly quickly. Immediately after Johannes Gutenberg develops this method, and the method gets well known, and other people start imitating him and using their devices, all of a sudden there's a bunch of more books coming out. However, this did come with a drawback. So people all over Europe copied his machines and set up printing shops where they could mass produce books and papers. The consequence of mass quantity is that the quality really decreased. Many of these books were fairly were very, very low effort, but made to get information out. That being said, there were still gorgeous books that had nice typography and some detailed illustrations. Medieval manuscripts weren't going out of style per se, but it became sort of a niche market at this point where only, Bibles and some church officials wanted these medieval manuscripts. Another good thing was that the Bible was made in this very condensed, easy to read format. Now, this came with another drawback. Before this period of time, there was a growing need for typographers and illustrators to really get into the place when it comes to designing this type, arranging this type, making sure it looks nice. These scribes spend a good portion of time and lives to doing this. However, because this sort of press came out and this movable type came out to create books, this led to a very stale period in graphic design history in terms of typography. I mean, typographers did have time and some jobs for special projects, but more people had access to these tools that typographers worked to mimic, that people were able to get their items made much quicker, albeit not as high quality, but they were able to get it for cheaper as well. So it's during this period of time that graphic designers, especially typographers, won't get any sort of new innovations that could help them out in terms of technical wise. Several hundred years later, we'll have different art movements that we'll talk about, such as Dada and Futurism and Rochester Constructivism, and graphic designers and typographers still have a field that they explore in, but there won't be any invention to help the field, if that makes sense. The tools that are introduced sort of help fulfill a purpose that graphic designers have already done. There's nothing that really makes it that much easier, and this doesn't happen until we get computers. So I want you to think about that. Several hundred years of multiple technological advancements, but nothing that dramatically helps out the graphic designer for his job. So several hundred years of no innovation for an entire job field until we get the computers. Now, what does this have to do with graphic design other than this history? Well, there's a huge parallel with Adobe releasing their programs such as Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. When computers first came about and sort of these design programs started becoming available, graphic designers, this is that innovation that hadn't happened before. Graphic designers were all of a sudden able to very quickly do these things that they'd want to do in a much, much quicker fashion. But then, with the Adobe license coming out and the Creative Cloud, just normal people are now able to pay for these softwares. Anyone can just go on, sign up for Photoshop, and just start going through with Photoshop. They don't have any design experience. They may not know anything about design, but they could go in and just do stuff. This is very prominent because it's a direct tie-in. Johannes Gutenberg developed this machine to help people make beautiful things, and because so many people had access to it, the quality of the work started going down. Same thing here. Adobe released this product for a lot of people to use, and so this led to just them flooding the market with sort of subpar work and then sort of drowning out. Because in today's field, graphic design is very, very competitive because so many people join into it. So it's important to know that this is a very, very clear parallel into what both of these mean. This is one of the shorter videos. For these shorter videos, it's mostly setting the groundwork for what comes later. So next time we will be talking about a very important invention to come after this, which will be lithography and an interesting thing that has to do with the printing press. So I hope you all enjoyed. Have a good one.